Last week I did a video on proportional representation, PR, and why it's a con against the voters and that we shouldn't have it, concluding that first past the post, despite all its faults, was the better system. And there's a link to the video for that in the description. But this video I want to explain why first past the post is the right system for us. So consider our system as we have it. In order to win an election, you have to win a lot of seats, and that means that you have to have fairly broad support. If you only follow one issue, if you have a very narrow agenda, the chances of you getting enough support to win enough seats to win the election is diminished. If there's a real critical issue hitting the country, maybe you'll be able to do it with just one issue, but more often than not, you need a broad policy agenda that appeals to a lot of people in order to get sufficient seats. And that means your party has to be broad. You have to have people in your party with a lot of different thoughts, diversity of opinions, in order to come up with that program. So if you imagine PR, where you don't know what the government program is until after all the parties that are in the coalition have sat down in a smoky room and told you, okay, this is what we've agreed. Well, in first past the post, those discussions happen before an election, because there are wings and factions within parties who are similar to those separate coalition partners in PR, who are all fighting and vying to have their voice heard and have their opinions form part of that policy agenda. And then the party within itself, it discusses, it compromises, and it comes up with an agenda that everyone can agree with, or at least live with, and then presents it to the electorate in their manifesto. So all those backroom discussions happen before the election so that we, the electorate, know what it is we are voting for. And if the parties can't put together a manifesto that attracts broad support, they're not going to win. And you see it from time to time where the different factions within these big parties, for the UK that's historically Tories and Labour, if one becomes too powerful, the government programme shrinks in its focus, and then it loses appeal to a wide majority of or a wide number of the people in our electorate, and they lose the election. So it's a self-correcting mechanism to try and keep those parties from coming too extreme or too narrow in their views. If you look at the Tories, you've got on one side the quite rabid capitalist free marketeers, all the way through to the Wets, who are sort of almost Labourites. And then in Labour, you've got on one side the neo-Marxists on the far left, all the way through to what they call Blue Labour, which are like Tories but nicer. And these different factions form coalitions within the parties that have their arguments before they present to us their programmes of government. So it gives us as an electorate a much clearer view of what we're voting for. The other benefit of the first past the post is that it prevents the rise of extremist parties. All over Europe, where you see for a PR, you see the rise of extremist parties who get a few seats, they get a few votes, get a few seats, and then they're able to wiggle their way into the public discourse. They're able to get more airtime, and slowly they build that up until they become a power, and very often they hold the balance of power. Whereas in the first past the post system, anyone with more extreme views is unlikely to win many votes or many seats, local conditions allowing. And that means that extremist voices that have small support are unlikely to form part of the government. Now, if you happen to be one of those people with those extreme beliefs, then sorry, tough. If those extreme beliefs were supported widely, then you'd get more seats. That's democracy. The other thing that you get with first past the post is the ability to fire your government, which I would argue is the most important power you have as a voter. If we collectively agree that the government is rubbish, if it's doing a bad job, if it's focusing on the wrong things, if they are showing all sorts of poor character traits, think Partygate, then we can say, no, you're out of here. You can't do that with PR. You can with first past the post, because first past the post gives you a clear loser as well as a winner. So there you go, positive reasons to support first past the post. See you soon.